Hello and welcome to the Monroe Method Clancast. I am Jason Monroe. This is episode 159. Holy shit. It has been almost 2 months since I put out a podcast episode. Where to begin? I suppose we should probably start with like a life update. So yeah, last episode went out on Friday the 14th. I moved out of my moved out of my old house on Friday the 7th of November. Moved back in with my parents that weekend, and now here we are. So it's been a little difficult adjusting, trying to navigate a Christmas, trying to navigate kids who miss their old house, who miss their old life, who miss their parents being together, trying to navigate life as a single dad, trying to make sure that the Monroe Method still continues as normal and doesn't experience any disruption. And I reckon I've done a pretty good job of all of that. The only thing is that, something has to give. Something that I tell the people I work with quite a lot is that, this is the way that I imagine life, right? So if you imagine life as being a pie chart, and that pie chart can only go up to 100%, right? There's nothing else, right? There is 100% and everything is below that. So, and that pie chart is split up into lots and lots of different things, like to name a few: chores, friends, socializing, kids, family, work, bills, food, exercise, sleep, personal time, like all that shit, right? It all occupies its own slice of the pie chart. And sometimes when one area of life expands and you've only got 100% to give, so you can't, there isn't anything extra coming from anywhere else. So when one area expands, you have to take from somewhere else. Like it's why people will quite often go through a period of busyness, and the thing that will suffer will be their sleep. Like I'll just stay up late tonight to get this thing done, and you stay up to midnight when you normally go to bed at 9:30, but you still have to get up the same time the next day. So yeah, it's the podcast was a bit of one of my slices of my pie chart. Do you know, now that I'm talking about it, because I've kind of, this has always been at the back of my mind that I haven't recorded one of these. I really like doing these. I enjoy it. It's so much better than the short form shit that I have to do on Instagram all the time. I like delving into things more. But I have been a bit guilty of trying to not think about it and forget about it and push it to the back of my mind. But now that I'm leaning into it and opening up and speaking about it, I actually think there's a part of me that avoided the podcast a little bit because it reminds me of walking the dogs. And I've lost the dogs in the separation. I didn't lose them. I had to give them up. It was going to be too ridiculously difficult to split custody of 2 dogs and 2 kids. And it was just... I think it would have been different if they were just pets, but they're not. They're show dogs, and that would mean trying to figure stuff out for them being, not for me to do it, but for them to be groomed, for them to be shampooed, when is their shows on. It was just too much. It made no sense for me to continue to try and be involved in that. And that's a very difficult thing to do. Something you don't think about when you go through a separation, or I didn't think about it, maybe many of you listening have, is the grief that's involved. Nobody's dying, but you're grieving a lot of loss. A loss of a lifestyle, a loss of a beautiful home, a loss of a family unit. It doesn't matter how miserable or unhappy or what was going on in the relationship. Or I did at least. It's different, of course, for many, but you still have that safety and security and comfort of knowing that someone's there, that your kids have 2 parents, that there's somebody to share the load, that there's somebody else to share the thinking. yeah, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So I think, and then obviously like grieving the loss of the dogs, all that stuff. But I thought I was out the other side of all of that. But I think this is me now truly out the other side. The fact that I wanted to come out here on a Sunday night on the 11th of January and record a podcast. Like literally I was sitting watching football. I don't watch football very often. But I was just random. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I just randomly had the TV on and I was watching the Hearts and Dundee game. And I enjoyed watching it, but I'm like, now what do I do? Because it's not my weekend with the kids. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go outside and just record a podcast episode. It's a bit like, people trying to get back into tracking or get back into some, running or exercise or whatever it is that you've fallen away from. Like the first time is the hardest. Just do the thing. It doesn't matter how it goes. Just do the thing and let the rest come after. I didn't know what I was going to talk about. Everything is just falling out my mouth at the moment, but let's find a topic. I'm sitting staring at my computer screen. So yeah, for another update. So I'm back at my parents' house. I am staying here probably for another 3 to 4 months. Then I am going to sort a mortgage. Then I am going to start looking for a house. So hopefully by the summer this year, I will have my own place. But I'm very fortunate that my mum and dad still live in my childhood home. It's just the two of them in this 3-bedroomed mid-terrace house. My dad is a very handy man, which I think I mentioned before. So he has a lovely log cabin summer house thing that he built in the back garden. I have got a log fire burning just now. You'll probably have seen that featuring quite a lot on my Instagram because it's a nice feature. And I am sitting here nice and cozy at my desk. But I'm staring at my Instagram on the computer because I wanted to get an idea. And the one that has popped, kind of stuck out at me is this one. If you've been on my Instagram this week, you'll have seen a picture of my beautiful son with his big smiley face and his red Ferrari hat on and his Mercedes hoodie on when we were at Silverstone last year. And the cover on that says, "My childhood had a lot to do with me being overweight later in life." And this is actually perfect. It's beautiful to talk about this because now that I'm back home again, my mum and dad still eat the same way. My dad still eats massive portions. He eats fried breakfasts every day. I'm not criticising my dad's eating habits. Like, it's up to him how he wants to eat. If this is how it's up to anybody how anyone takes care of their body. The point of what I'm going to be talking about is to share that, coming back here and seeing the way that I used to eat, right? So it's kind of being presented back to me in the sense that when I left here, however many years ago now, I left here with those eating habits. So, I was a super active kid, insanely active kid. My mum's back garden backs onto like a kind of open field type bit. And I could basically jump over the back wall and I was in amongst the trees and some hills and a park and a marsh and a bog and so many places to have fun with and explore. I was climbing trees all day. My mum would come out, and she'd have to shout out the back garden to get me to come in. And I liked gaming. I liked my Sega Mega Drive. I still played games and stuff on rainy days and night times, but daytimes I just wanted to be outside. So I was a very outdoorsy kid. So it didn't matter that you had to clear your plate. It didn't matter that there was food rules involved and, you're not allowed to leave the table until you've eaten all of that and you're not going to get treats until you've done this, like conditional rules, reward, punishment, all of these things involved. And to come back here all these years later, after me kind of resolving all that stuff on my own over the last however many years and seeing my dad still eat the same way and they still think the same way. You don't waste food doesn't go in the bin. Things have to get things get used up, but they get used up in a negative way, right? So like, okay, this is going off. I've already had my lunch. I've just found this thing in the cupboard. It's got tomorrow's date on it. Better just eat it. because, you can't put it in the bin. It's that same mentality, and it's that same mentality that drove my weight to where it was back in 2016. Now I can say that I've maintained my weight. In fact, sorry, 2015. I can now say that I've maintained my weight for a decade, and resolved all of those issues. So, and like I said, I put this in a post over this weekend yesterday, actually, and a lot of people commenting on it saying the same things. We all got hit with the same things as children. So I'm 40. Many of the people following me are around a similar age to me, and it seems quite a universal thing where we all got beat over the head with the starving kids in Africa line. You're very lucky. You're lucky to have this food. There's starving kids in Africa. It was one that we always got hit with. I said to somebody said on the post about the starving kids in Africa, and I said, I wonder if the kids in Africa get told about the people going to food banks in the UK. Like, do other people get, do we get used as an example for anything? Anyway, something that is kind of coming out more and more with the work I do inside the Monroe Method with people is that our childhoods are ingrained in us. Someone has started, I can't remember all the details, but I did a check-in on Friday for someone who's just started, and she has a lot of upbringing issues going on. So basically all the similar things that I'm speaking about just now, clearing every plate, not leaving the table until your plate's empty, not being allowed to leave, not being allowed treats unless you've met some certain conditions. Like if you eat all those vegetables, then you'll get ice cream. You're not getting sweets until you've done this, this conditional reward type behavior. And as I started touching on, like I was a super active kid. And for many, when you're a kid, it doesn't matter. You can finish the plate and it's fine because you're going out to burn it all off anyway because you're playing. Like it's a non-issue. And then you're not a kid anymore. You're doing your driving lessons, or you're going to college, or you're leaving, or you're starting a job, or you're getting your own place. So like something that was relatively harmless at the time is you're now taking into adulthood with you, and you're clearing every plate, but you're the one in charge of how much is on the plate. You're rewarding yourself with food, but you're doing it all the time. It's not just at the dinner table. You're not climbing trees and running around and cycling and playing football and building dens and exploring and doing whatever you're doing and burning all those calories off. You're now storing them as body fat. And even worse, it's not as bad now. So I've been doing this for 8 years now. And it feels to me that there's like a bit of a shift in the attitudes towards like this type of behavior. So I've had this, I was talking to someone about this recently. Like I think there is a generational thing where a lot of the eating issues that we have at the moment when it comes to do with food waste and clearing plates and don't waste food and, you have to eat kids' leftovers. It's better for you to put something in your mouth than it is to throw it in the bin, that kind of attitude. I think that is a hangover from the war. That's what I feel like that is. I think that because our parents and grandparents are and things, well, let's think about it. World War II. This is interesting because I actually watched Dunkirk last night. World War II was around until like the 1840s, right? Or it started around the 1840s, somewhere around then, right? I am not a historian. Please don't call me out in this, but I reckon 1840-ish is when it was happening. Between 1830 and 1840, maybe a little later. So a lot of our grandparents were alive either during that time or not long after that time. So my parents were born in the... my dad's going to be 60 next year. Right, so my parents were born in the 60s, 50s and 60s. My mum's a bit older. So they were born post-war. But very close to it, ridiculously close to it. So there would have been a period back then where like food scarcity, like anything, rationing, all that stuff. That would have been like, our grandparents would have been adults during the time when it was a big deal, like not to waste food. And then that then got passed on to our parents. And that then got passed on to us. But it's almost like it starts to dilute itself because I'm not passing that on to my kids. Fair enough. I am a nutritionist and I understand this stuff. I know there are still many parents who do still pass this on. The point was, like, I don't feel like it's anywhere near as much of a problem as it was maybe 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Like, it's not as strong. To me, it's starting to fade. And people are a bit more wise to it in terms of like not passing it on to their children, not talking about themselves the same way. And it shows up in different areas. Like it can show up in things like dieting, talking about yourself in a certain way, talking about your weight. I think we're starting to become more conscious of how that has effect on our kids when they hear us. Like, I've told you this before, that I got dragged along to every slimming group in the sun when I was a kid. Either sitting outside in the car waiting for my mum to go and get weighed at Weight Watchers or Slimming World or Scottish Slimmers or whatever she was doing, or sitting in the car while she was at a step aerobics class or whatever, or when we were a bit younger, like sitting in the creche, part of the meeting while everybody's stepping on the scales. People wouldn't dream of doing that now, some people would, but it's not, it's more frowned upon now, I think, is the point I'm making, rather than it being normalized. It's so important to recognize that your upbringing has, like, there will be things, there will be habits, behaviors, beliefs that are so ingrained in you that you don't even realize it. Like, it's not until it's presented back to you, it's not until it's explained to you and shown to you. There are so many times that I sit and do a check-in, and I'll read something and say it back to the person and be like, yeah, this is what this is. That this has probably come from your childhood. Like, where does this thought come from? Who told you that you're not allowed to eat this until you've done that? Who told you that you have to clear every plate? It's not written down anywhere. There is no unwritten rule somewhere that says every plate of food must be cleared. That thing there, that thing about the whole clearing plates, that, because we're at the 11th of January and I work with, I wouldn't say it's my busiest time of the year. The end of this month is when I get super busy, but there's still plenty of people started this week. And then we've gotten to the point where I've been calculating their figures on just a few days ago before I finished up for the weekend. And a conversation that I kept having was people talking about portion sizes. I know my portion sizes are too big. I know I need to eat smaller portions. I know I need to control my portion sizes. And I come back to every single one of them and say, look, no, you don't. Your portion sizes are not the problem. Are they a problem? Absolutely. But they're not the problem. Portion sizes are a non-issue unless you are someone who clears every plate of food. That's the problem. The problem is that it's so ingrained in you. Think of it this way, right? Instead of thinking to them, well, actually, I should just eat until I'm full and then stop eating. Instead, what they think they need to do is put less food on their plate. Now, that might be true. Most people do need to put less food on their plate. But that doesn't solve anything, because you can only control portions at home. Okay, yes, you can use a smaller plate. Yes, you can put less food on a plate. Okay, that's fine. What happens when you go to a friend's house? What happens when you go to a restaurant? What happens when you're at a social gathering or there's a buffet? That goes out the window then. So portion control, I'm not really big into portion control. My method of portion control is you need to develop the skill of learning how to eat until you are full and then you stop eating. What's left on the plate then becomes your portion. That's how you control your portions, right? Now, that might sound difficult because a lot of people say, well, I don't know when I'm full. And then I'll say, yeah, well, where do you eat your meals? Are you sat at a table? Oh, no, we eat with our meals in our lap in front of the TV in the living room. It's like, yeah, well, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to recognize when you feel full. That's why you don't know. That's why you keep going till the plate's finished. Like, part of it certainly comes from childhood, but another part of it comes from the fact that you're kind of sitting there mind numb, staring at the TV, watching something, chatting to your partner, laughing, whatever. You're not actually paying attention to what you're eating. You're not recognizing when you feel full. So it's also about giving yourself the best conditions. But the point was, right, that the underlying issue remains the key problem. If you put less food on a plate, if you put a smaller portion out and you finish that portion, then all you've done is facilitate the problem. So it's like, okay, I'm going to continue being someone who clears every plate of food. I'm just going to give myself smaller plates of food, which means that's fine at home when you can put out a smaller plate. But again, what happens when you go to a restaurant? It's not the portion size that's the problem. It's I was brought up that you're supposed to clear every plate of food, that you can't waste food, that it's better to eat it than it is to leave it on the plate. Anyway, the point was, like, I've been explaining that a lot to a lot of people this week, and it's just made me realise, like, how much of a challenge that these childhood behaviours are, that we bring them into adulthood with us, that we drag them along from our childhood, and they have an effect on us later in life. Our parents were only trying to do their best. Our parents didn't intentionally fuck us up. They didn't deliberately do this. I'm going to make sure this person's going to be, this kid's going to be overweight when they're older. Let's teach them that food is a reward and food is a treat. And every time they hurt themselves, we're going to give them a sweet to make them feel better, because that's... God, I've just realised a typo. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, that's killed me. I've just noticed a typo on a post that I did where I've spelt January wrong. January. Oh my good golly gosh. That kills me. Somebody mentioned that to me once. I was walking the dogs, recording a podcast episode, and I looked down at my phone to look something up, and I went, oh, I've just noticed a typo. That kills me. Oh, I wish I hadn't seen that. So yeah, our parents weren't intentionally trying to do this to us. They were... one of the reasons that my mum made us clear every plate and overeat was because she hated us coming back 5 minutes later saying we were hungry. She wanted to stuff us full and then send us out and not have to see us for 4 or 5 hours. That was one of her reasons. And it was a selfish reason, but she didn't understand what the consequences of that was. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a selfish reason. That's unfair to say. She knew that I was going to be hungry soon after, so it's like trying to control your eating ahead of predicted hunger. Like, it was a strategic thing, but it backfired massively, because I then went on to become someone who ate to excess. So yeah, please know that it's so incredibly normal. Somebody asked me something the other day. Is this normal? I do this thing. Is this normal? And I said to them, look, if you're doing it, it's normal. If it's happening, it's normal. If something is happening to you, if you're doing something, yes, it is normal, because you are not the only person in the world doing it. Now, is it normal to approach food in that way? Not really, because it's having a negative impact. It's been normalized though. Dieting. Look at yo-yo dieting. Is it normal to yo-yo diet? Not really. Is it normal for you to chase your weight up and down by 3 and 4 stones every single year? No, it's not. However, so many people do it that it feels normal. It's been normalized. And that's not a positive thing, because it means the yo-yo diet world is allowed to breed and get out of fucking control. And that's not right. But if it's happening to you, is it normal? Yes. But is it something that could still probably needs to be fixed? Is it something that needs to be improved? Is it something you need to work on? Yes. So don't ever think that you're ever doing anything that's not normal, that's out of the norm, that is only happening to you. God, I speak to so many people that say, my weight does this and my weight does this and my body does this. I'm like, no. I mean, yeah, your body does that, but why are you specifying your body? Because people like to think that they're unusual, that they're different. Sometimes people like to convince themselves of this so it can explain their weight. And it's just us kind of battling to understand, why can't we, why can't we keep that weight off? Why does it keep coming back on? There must be something different about me. Why does my body do this? Your body is only doing what you're telling your body to do. It's losing weight when you're on a diet, and then it's putting it back on again when you go back to normal and eat to excess. That's not anything unusual. That's a body being a human body. That's a body doing what it's supposed to do. It's not just specific to yours. It would happen to anyone that acts in that way, that eats in that way, that drinks in that way. So don't ever feel like there's anything happening to you that shouldn't be, right? Your weight is not luck. And it's, people who lose weight and keep it off, it doesn't happen by luck. It doesn't happen by finding the perfect diet. It doesn't happen by finding the best tips or hacks or secret. Comes from changing as a person. So yeah. So I know this was a bit all over the place. I know I'm out of practice. But it's done. I don't care. I do care, but I don't care in the sense that I used to be a perfectionist, and I still am in some senses, but I'm also well aware that sometimes it's easier just to get something done than it is to do nothing. Now that I've done this, I'm probably going to record one a day and get well caught up in all the episodes that I've missed. But yeah, I think we'll make this one a bit more about childhood habits. Or I don't know, we'll decide when I go to upload the episode and write the blurb for it. But yeah, please know that just because it came from childhood doesn't mean that that's who you are. It's not a part of your identity. It was certainly a part of your upbringing, but it's not who you have to continue to be. And yeah, it's not just you. Many of us are dealing with those challenges. And the other thing as well, is somebody said on that post, like, I feel like I'm never going to get over this. And I kind of said, well, I don't think you ever do. You just get better at navigating it. What I didn't dive into was like, because it was the whole not allowed to leave the table until the plate's cleared thing. I got very good at eating very quickly. And I soon discovered that, if I eat this incredibly fast, I'll basically beat my body. I'll beat it. So if I eat really fast, I'll get all of this food in, and my body's not going to know until 10, 15 minutes later that I've stuffed myself. But it doesn't matter by that point because the food's already in. You've won. You've cleared the plate. You've got the treats. You've got away from the table. You got back to playing. But now you're going to feel like shit for the next hour where your body tries to digest all that food. So these were all hangovers that I was left with, eating very fast, clearing every plate, can't waste food, starving kids in Africa, food guilt, food shame, food rules, rewards, punishment. And I don't think any of that ever goes away because it kind of lingers. It was part of your childhood, so that it then goes on to kind of become a part of your future. However, it's like anything. Like once you recognize that there's something not necessarily wrong with you, but something different in your thinking or the way that you are, then it's about trying to work with it. So I know that if I ever stand up and eat, and if I ever eat in the car, if I ever eat awkwardly, if I eat in front of a TV or playing with a phone, I will revert back to my childhood version of me, and I will not pay attention to my food, and I'll very easily overeat because I will eat very quickly. I have to sit down at a table and eat my meals because that's what reverts me into normal eating mode. That's how I make sure that I don't mindlessly slip back into the childhood version of me. So yeah, I don't think it's something that ever goes away, but it's not something you're going to be stuck with. It's about learning how to navigate it as a part of life now. And that just comes from making some tweaks and adjustments. The amount of people are like, oh, no matter what I do, I can't leave food on a plate. And it's like, yeah, but you're still eating in front of the TV. Like, I know it's you might enjoy eating in front of the TV, it might be habit, you might love sitting down with your dinner and watching whatever it is at a specific time, but you have to understand that it's also a reason that you're, one of the many reasons that you're overweight. It's you're distracted from eating. There are some people who can do it, but if you're someone who can't, then you're someone who can't. Like, I can't sit with my dinner in my lap and watch the TV. If I did that, I would go back to being 14.5 stone. I don't want to go back to being 14.5 stone, so I don't sit and eat my dinner in front of the TV. It's something that I don't want to say it's a sacrifice because it doesn't feel like it. Like, I would much rather be the strong, healthy, fit, balanced diet and weight that I am and that I have now, that's more important to me than, well, did you get to eat your dinner in front of the TV today? Like, it's no competition. But long-term weight loss, a lot of that comes from understanding that you simply can't do some things anymore. And that's been a big theme inside the group this week, where I've done a lot of starting figures and basically said to people, look, your weight is where it is because of the things that you've done, the way that you've socialized, the way that you've enjoyed yourself, the way that you've celebrated. Something that you have to come to terms with is that if you are 15 stone right now and you've told me you want to be 9 stone, you have to understand that the way that you celebrate now, you will never be able to celebrate like that ever again. The way that you drink alcohol now. So for example, drinking 2 bottles of wine in an evening might be perfectly normal for someone, but you have to say like, okay, well, that's normal now, but it's normal you at 15 stone. There is no version of reality where there's a 9 stone version of you who is drinking 2 bottles of wine on a Saturday night, because that is one of your old behaviors. That's one of your 15 stone behaviors. You cannot make your 15 stone behaviors lead to a 9 stone body, and it's making sure that people understand that, the way that you snack, the way that you go to the cinema, the stuff that you buy at the cinema, the way that you go to Tesco and do your shopping, the way that you navigate a takeaway, the amount of food that you order, you won't be able to do that anymore. All of that is stuff that has to change, because all of that, everything you're doing now related to food and drink, the way that you think, the way that you act, the way that you behave, the way that you do it, that's why you are the weight that you are. You can't continue to do those things, but expect your body to become smaller. So yeah, it's a lot of realizations that things have to change if you want to change. And I guess a part of that is understanding your childhood, understanding that this idea that you can't waste food, this idea that you have to clear your plate, this idea that you can only have X treat once you've completed X set of conditions. Somebody in the group that I've been working with for a while said, I'm still enjoying my chocolate. I just make sure I've had fruit or I've had this. I'm like, we've still got some work to do here, because you're still creating conditions. You should be able to tell me that you've eaten chocolate and that's the end of it. You shouldn't be telling me that you've eaten chocolate, you just make sure you've done this to make it okay, because we're still creating rules and conditions. Eating an apple before you eat some chocolate doesn't make the chocolate any better. It's still a disordered food rule. Anyway, like I said, I know this was all over the place. I'm sure there's been a little bit of something for everyone in this. I will get back more focused on specific topics. I am going to record a podcast episode every day this week. I am going to take inspiration from check-ins that I do, and we will get up to date with the weekly episodes. Do you know, the only thing I'm a little bit down about is that we missed the opportunity over the festive period. Obviously, my plan would have been to talk about Christmas and, release episodes all the way into Christmas. That didn't happen. I'm a little bit down about it, but I can't change it now, so I'm not going to get overly upset. We're still going to upload plenty of episodes. I'm going to date them all back to the Fridays from the 14th. So Friday the 14th of November means that I have missed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 episodes. That's not bad. This is 1, so it's down to 7. If I record one every day this week, then it's down to 7. That will take me to 6, 5, 4, 3, and by Friday it will be 2, but that Friday there'll be an episode due, so it'll be back up to 3. Yeah, we'll get caught up this week. Right. Thank you if you've made it to the end of this ramble. I will be back tomorrow with another episode and another one and another one. And we'll start covering some important topics. And listen, if you are not yet working with me, 2026 should be the year. There should be a link below these podcast episodes linking you to the 30-day trial. If you're ready to do it the right way, or to start yourself down the right path when it comes to long-term weight loss, then we should be working together this year. Until next time.